to the Forest School podcast with Lewis Ames and Gemma Southerden.
Hello.
Hello. It's been, I don't know if people are going to listen to them one after the other, but we just did the intro to the last podcast
We did,
about 3 minutes ago
with Bird Girl.
with Bird Girl. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was enlightening for you. We're face to face and I'm slightly...
It's weird, isn't it?
It is weird
It's our first podcast not on Zoom.
for a couple of months. For
Longer than that. Long
time.
Oh, Long Johnson.
But we're-
And we're
we're-
outdoors.
Yeah, we're 8 metres away from each other in hazmat suits so that we don't... No.
We're in the woods,
In
as
the
you
woods.
may be able to hear.
So
There's a
for
little wren
people
going
that have been
nuts.
missing out, like, no, now they're at home, they're not getting as distracted by stuff as much, and they're not randomly talking about stuff I can't see. Don't you worry. We're going
We're
to be
all back
seeing
now.
stuff. We're going to be off topic and cold.
Yes.
We had a thunderstorm last night. Well, kind of thunder, didn't it? It's been very hot here. Although I was talking to the ladies at Birdwing because that we've
Australia?
interviewed in Australia, because I sent them a picture of us looking very sweaty in 33-degree C heat, and just said, "How do you even cope with that?" And I can't remember their exact reply, but they basically put like, "Oh yeah, it's coming to the end of our winter now. It's been 28 every day, so we're looking forward to some warmer weather." And I was like, "What?
How?
How do you even?"
Yeah, it's been really, really hot, and now it's much cooler and very misty, and I'm sitting here like a granny under some crochet blankets that were donated to us very kindly, which feels weird because it's been so blooming hot.
Yeah. People in other countries, guess what? British people like talking about the weather.
Yeah.
Guess what? We love it.
You just need to get that out of your system, don't you? You just need to like start off with a bit of weather chat before you can move on.
Do you know what? It's a shared experience,
Yeah.
right? It's a shared, like, hey, wasn't that mental?
Yeah.
That we're losing more and more, potentially, but we're inside. Yeah, I think it's a leveler.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not what we're going to talk about today.
No.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about, well, after we spoke with Maya Rose, then we decided to go and read a few books about birds and birding.
Because we're legit podcasters, right? So what we
Yeah.
do is we interview someone who's quite well known first, and then we go and research it afterwards. And
That's not true. We researched her and what she's been up to,
She inspired us.
and she inspired us to go
To do
and,
some work.
and do some birdie stuff.
That's the wrong way round.
Yeah, but when we spoke to her, we didn't necessarily know, we spoke not just about birding with her, right?
That's true.
But, following on from that, we thought, yes, okay.
Yeah.
So, what did you read?
I read some of Simon Barnes's, I can't remember the exact title, Bad Bird Watcher's Guide to something.
Yeah, so I read Simon Barnes's How to Be a Bad Bird Watcher, and then I only realised last night, because you were listening to, I thought we were both doing that book.
Yeah.
And then yesterday you said to me, oh yeah, when you get to the recording of the thrush, it's like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't have that. And then I said to you about some sentences, and you were like, yeah. And turns out you were listening to, which is a good idea to listen to it as an audiobook, because presumably you get the bird song.
Mhm.
I think it's called like a companion to the Bird Watchers
It
Guide.
might well be.
And it's like a guide to the 50 most recognisable birds
Yeah.
of Britain.
A Bad Bird Watcher's Companion is what I've
Yes.
been reading. Yeah.
Whereas my one is just a like kind of prose thing persuading you to start watching birds.
Oh, well, we can talk about
Yeah.
different things then.
Yeah.
Clearly a prolific writer, though. I've also been listening to Simon Barnes's Rewild Yourself.
Yes.
So I've listened to all of Rewild Yourself, and I've listened to some of the Bad Bird Watcher's Companion.
Yes, and I read a few of the free chapters of that
Did you read or listen? Because I feel like for
I-
this it's important.
to listen. I read, but that means I know the structure of the book kind of thing. It's bird by bird, isn't it, with a bit of interesting...
Oh, I just
info.
meant because my first like takeaway, sort of 10 minutes into listening to the Birdwatching Companion book, was that I had chosen the wrong place to listen to it, because I came to work on my own, and I was like, I've got to paint a bit of the tree house, and I've got to put this away, and I mean, it's a testament to the wildlife that's here, but I found it really difficult to differentiate the bird watching book, because it's like, here's the sound of a robin, and then there'd be like a buzzard, you know, shouting in our woods, and I kept having to go, like, put my hands over my headphones and kind of go, right, what is the actual thing that you want me to listen to? Because there's other, but then is that more realistic? Because that is what bird watching is more like, you know, picking out.
Well, that's one of the things he says about like listening to the dawn chorus in spring, which I have got a recording of, actually. I'll see if I can find it. It's amazing and like does your brain in. You cannot.
Cacophony, I think, was the word I've used.
But it's the worst for learning because everything is shouting its head off at once, and to try and extricate each separate bird is really, really hard. Whereas early spring, if you start, I was thinking this is kind of wrong seasonally, so we're recording this in a time when you probably can hear some birds, so you can hear a wren there.
Oh no, that's, well, so contrary, in mine they said after everybody's knackered is a good time to start, because you get months of blackbirds still go on for a bit, robins still go on for a bit, and it was like, by the time you get to them, by the time you get to early spring, you'll have learnt those. Yeah. And then, you know, and wrens and stuff like that. Yeah. And you've got time. Yeah, I mean, you could look at it two ways, I guess.
Yeah. So at the moment, the things that I have noticed loads is like pigeons all the blinking time. Yeah. Pigeons are so busy, and they're full on. My dog bleeds, Betty. Yeah.
We just said pigeons, and they've started.
My dog bleeds, Betty.
My son is still shouting that all the time. You know, he shouts that to you. Do you hear him so we get here first?
Yeah.
And then when your car gets to the gate, so it's, people that don't know the sign, it's like 300 metres away from where the camp is to the gate, and he goes, Gemma here, my Toby, and then he waits for you to shout back.
No, I never hear him say that.
No, he doesn't say it very loud. He's only 3, but he is very excited.
Oh, okay, I'll do that next time then.
But yeah, they are going nuts, and we've got some doves as well in the woods that we...
Collared doves, which we thought were owls for a bit, because they do...
It was just a weird noise, wasn't it?
They do similar but different pattern. I can't replicate it right now.
Yeah.
And then the wrens are super loud. So if you hear something like going like really, really loud, that's a wren, and you can distinguish it because it'll have a bit of in there somewhere. So
yeah, it always ends on a trill. In the one I was listening to, it said they just get so excited and worked up that the last bit goes...
Yeah. And they're so tiny, and their song is so loud.
Well, and also the one that got me in the books was they said that if you're not sure if it's a wren, try and listen, is it high or low? Because wrens sing in the scrub. Yeah. So, and that's, for me, easier to pick out, is like, oh, that noise is down coming there in the ferns or the brambles, rather than going... All the stuff up there, and I'm pointing, people can't see, is a big mix, but if it's down next to my ankles, that's a wren.
Yeah. The How to Be a Bad Bird Watcher, if people are thinking of reading it, I would say that it is a very persuasive book, so it's sort of... Oh, hello, pigeon. If you're already working outdoors and you're already into birds, you probably almost don't need to read it, because it's trying to persuade you to become more engaged with nature. But if you're just starting out on your journey, or maybe you've been focusing on some other flora and fauna and not really thinking about birds that often, or you aren't working very much at the moment, or for whatever reason, I say it's good. One thing that I've got to get off my chest, first of all, is that he writes quite a few sentences which I'm sure he just thinks are like really innocuous sentences. But as a woman reading this book, and like most of
You got really uptight.
I did, because...
You were telling me about it the other day.
Loads of birders are... Like, he even says, like, most proper...
Well, do you know what? It ties into, doesn't it, though? We were talking with Maya about, diversity outdoors, and that isn't just racial and ethnic diversity outdoors. That is gender diversity outdoors.
Absolutely. And so he does admit, like, a lot of serious birders are middle-aged white men. But he, in this book, like, just makes lots of casual kind of throwaway sentences, like, uses examples of things and uses women as an example. So he'll be like, just as a happily married man will still look at a beautiful young girl as she walks past, and that doesn't mean that he is going to leave his wife, that is just like nature, blah, 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 blah. And, it's just healthy and natural. And then another one, he says, just as there will always be fewer stunning young women than there will be plain ones, la 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 in the bird world. I'm like, dude, like, well, you don't need to write that. Like, why do you need to use that as an example? Like, use anything else in the world other than that, which makes me feel alienated, makes me feel like the book isn't for me, and it's just you talking to your bloke friends somewhere. It's just like, you are not imagining me reading this book. You cannot be, otherwise you wouldn't write that, which makes me think, well, why am I bothering to read this then? Like,
well, it's probably a bit of and this is the issue with representation in the outdoor community, because it's woefully low diversity outdoors. But if you are writing a book like that, and I don't know this, right? I'm just doing a hypothetical. But if you were a publisher and you went, oh, okay, let's imagine a target audience for that, and we'll do a couple of test prints and we'll get it out to those people. They probably gave it to some middle-aged white men who had no issues with, if a publishing company had sent that to you, or had sent that to, a more diverse range of people, maybe, they might have got back more notes that said, do you know what, do
just
this.
Take the sentence out. It does nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't add to it.
It adds nothing. It only makes people feel uncomfortable. And it just normalises creepy sexism. Like, yeah.
It's a sort of appeal to the primitive, isn't it? That this thing of like viewing nature that way, and man strong, look after woman, all this stuff. I think there. I didn't look at when the books were published, but there are bits of it that seem, in a way,
not that long ago. I think 2004 or something, or 2011 might have. No, that's his most recent one.
But but when I was reading the Rewilding book, there's a tone to it. So the Rewilding book as a whole, How to Rewild Yourself, is I found it quite an interesting book, and quite similar to you saying about the bird book. If you already work outdoors, you probably knew all those things to exist. But as a framework, he frames everything as like a magic spell. So it's a magic spell to find owls. It's a magic spell to bring lizards into your garden. And then, it's like a magic spell to find birds or something. And then he describes sit spots. He describes go somewhere, sit still, do whatever. But he frames it in this like, you will know the secrets, and it will pass other people by, and all this stuff. And he moves, sometimes, I think the needle moves from intrinsic motivation, isn't this lovely, you get this amazing thing, and you'll feel connected, and you'll feel rewired. And then he nudges the other way in the writing and goes, and other people won't. And other people's experience will be less. He doesn't say this.
Oh, yeah.
But he almost moves into like, and other people will be scum compared to you.
Yeah, well, that's what you said about the bit where he talks about joggers. Where he really disses like people doing exercise.
But that was.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so that was a personal like. I realised as I was listening to it and having the feelings, I was like, oh, this has touched a point of my ego. My self-identity and whatever. But he's talking about going for a walk, and he's paddling down the river in a canoe, and he's saying he can hear this and he can hear that, and then he looks over and there's some joggers on the towpath with their headphones in, and he goes off on this scathing thing about like, and they're only concerned about their cardiovascular heart rate, but not the joy of the world, and they're listening to the rhythms of sex and drugs, and not appreciating the world around, and just really lays into them, and doesn't in any way, he's coming from a viewpoint, he's trying to talk to you about nature and why it's good, he's got a bias, but again it moves from this intrinsic, it will be a lovely experience to you, to also, I'm just going to shit on some other people for a minute.
And it also ties in with what Maya Rose said about access to the outdoors, and talking about how there's a definite kind of, as well as there being an actual difference in the people who are out and about, and there being that kind of that entitled feeling that not only are there more wealthy middle-class white people out in the outdoors doing nature, in inverted commas, there is also that kind of entitled feeling that there's an expectation amongst those group of people that they don't want to see anyone who isn't doing that,
or doing it like the, in quotes, the right way, doing it their way, that Edwardian, Lord Gardener. Oh, I have sprinkled some seeds. I have punted down the river, and anyone that is like, oh, I'm going to go in nature and have a picnic, I will probably bring a bottle of Coke. How dare you bring some Coke, you utter scumbag.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah. And that thing, and she was saying as well that access to nature doesn't have to be, I am going with binoculars to do birding. I am going to play football on some grass that is close to me, that is still
Yeah.
nature connection, and to pretend otherwise is really discriminatory. And
It's an
unfair.
interesting book but the rewilding book and the bird books all come at the start from they've got a very long spiel about, this is not for an avid birder with 4 sets of tripods and a monopod and everything else going. This is for you that takes the dog for the walk, and really comes off the first couple of paragraphs. It's like, I am Johnny Everyman, and I just want to connect people with birds and all this stuff. And then the rest of the book doesn't really fulfill that. I don't think it is. The information in it good, useful, well presented in terms of scientific, factual, helping people get on with birding? Yes, I think they are. I wouldn't say don't listen to things, because I think there's an experience to be had from listening to these books and getting uptight about them and wanting to.
To be honest, I tried.
change.
I read some reviews and nobody was uptight. It was just you,
Just-
and I
well,
who had any uptight
that's 'cause
moments.
we're the best.
That I found anyway. But I would agree definitely that it's the How to Be a Bad Bird Watcher. The reason he calls it a bad bird watcher is because he makes a distinction between twitchers or people who are like serious, collecting sightings and
Listing? Maya talked about listing, didn't
yes,
she?
that's right. So that kind of thing, and then your average person who doesn't proclaim to be a birder at all, but he kind of argues you are already doing it. Like you even the most unnature connected person still will know one bird or will hear birdsong. It's just that you tune into it. And I did quite like the way he described that process, which I'm sure is in the rewilding book as well, about if you start to focus on it and connect to the things you're already doing, but kind of like turn up your awareness, then it gives your life this whole extra rainbow of colours. And I would say that he described that process. Wow. There's something making very strange noise down the hill. I'm not really sure what that is. I don't know.
No idea.
And that really reminded me, I don't know about you, but it reminded me of what life felt like when I started doing forest school. So moving from teaching indoors to the beginning of it being my training and being outside 5 days in a trot, which was so new and exciting at that time. It's quite funny to look back on it and go, oh my God, I was outside from like 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. every day.
And I felt so different,
for
and I used my
5
hands.
days in a row.
Yeah.
And then I came home and I wanted to go outside more because I loved it, but it felt weird to go outside more. Like, why would you go outside more? You've been outside all day. Come in and watch telly, And that whole now I've opened my eyes to that first little thing. Then I learn that and I get that under my belt, and it kind of that circle of awareness thing I talk about quite often. So that's really exciting, and kind of he taps into that really well and describes it really well. And it's very encouraging because it makes you feel like just because I don't know something doesn't mean I shouldn't try. And there's an interesting bit where he discusses learning the names of things, because that is something that comes up in forest school a bit, doesn't it? Because some people will argue that to just teach learners the names of birds, insects, flora, whatever, is not necessarily positive, because it's sort of like, well, there you go, it's a wren. There you go, conversation closed, that's it, it's a wren now, move on. Whereas some people say that it's really important to learn the names, and I think I do agree with him when he talks about like being able to name things is like a key that unlocks things. Like once you learn the name, you form a relationship, like a one-sided relationship with that creature. Just like names are important to us. And he talks about how like Americans, he generalises here completely, obviously, you meet an American and they straight away tell you their name, whereas English people withhold that very precious information for a little bit and make a bit of small talk and then reveal their name. And he says that obviously if he's watching a wren and he knows it's called a wren, the wren has no relationship with him, doesn't know his name, doesn't even know he's there. That's the whole point, that you want to try and bird when they're completely unaware of you. But you knowing its name forges this one-way relationship with it, with that type of bird. Oh, there's really lots of goings on. We're doing this thing.
Squirrels are going, absolutely. I think that was a squirrel
Falling out of a tree.
Falling out of a tree or pushing something out of a tree. Guys, I know you missed it. I know you missed the tangents. I know everybody listening is like...
I was wondering about whether any
finally.
sweet chestnuts were going to drop huge branches over this week. I know, because last summer it was about this kind of time. when it's got
Yeah.
really dry, all the leaves started turning brown. It's like early little bit of autumn, and then the sweet chestnuts go, yeah, I don't think I need that branch anymore. It's too hot.
Well, it's to do with the
Kabam.
canopy getting heavy, isn't it? We think.
Applications for Forest School training are now open at childrenoftheforest.com. Check out the podcast links for more details.
Anyway, can I speak to the
Yes.
thing about naming?
Yes.
Because I always get this weird dichotomy whenever we talk about naming, which is, and I think I'm right in saying it's Eckhart Tolle, the philosopher. I'm going very far from
we haven't
birding
talked
now.
about him for a long time.
Oh, I know. Oh,
Early days of the podcast.
Interesting
he
person,
reared his
Eckhart
head every
Tolle.
day.
And he talks about, I think it's Eckhart. Anyway, talks about naming something then kills engagement.
Yes.
And talks about this idea that like once you go, take the example, wren, your brain shortcuts and goes, I know wrens, I know what they eat, I know what their behaviour is, I know what their call is, all this stuff. Whereas he talks about if you don't name it, then you see that wren for actually what it is. It might have a slightly different call than other wrens. Its behaviour might be different because of where it is. So it
She heard
yes,
you.
point proven. Thank
She
you.
heard you.
Um,
Hello, Jenny.
but that thing of sometimes naming something, and I've seen it with groups where we go. The first time you go to a group, buzzards are in our woodland, and buzzards are an impressive bird, big bird of prey thing, and they swoop and they make a funny noise. So the first time with a group, you go, buzzard! They're like, whoa, a buzzard, what is this thing? How does it fly? What's it going to eat? How do they're engaged with it. And then I would say a lot of children that have been coming for a number of years, some of them, you go, buzzard, and they go, yep. And they're just kind of like, well, I know about buzzards. And I always want to go, but you don't know what it's doing today, and you don't know what the thing is, and maybe it's...
But do you think that they would connect and engage more if they didn't know the name of it? Because I would say...
Yes, because I think you would go, what is that? And then you engage, then there's questions, then there's whatever else.
But
Maybe I
would,
should be asking that question, not them.
I would counter that by saying that recently we've had juvenile buzzards in the woods, which make a different sound, and the behaviour of the buzzards is different as the adults are interacting with the juveniles. And so I have had conversations with a child where they've gone, buzzard, but it sounds different. And they have picked up on that. And it was when we were... It was that time that a child and I went off to hide, and you guys just didn't come and find us. We were like fully camouflaged, wearing like tarps covered in slugs, had like hats on and charcoal face paint on, and we were down in the bottom corner of the woods, and we were there for like 25 minutes because nobody came to find us. But of course, as we often do, it turned into an inadvertent sit spot. So there was a juvenile
And that's
buzzard.
all I was facilitating
Oh,
for
of
you.
course.
I knew, you know what, I knew.
And it was very intriguing because there was this buzzard like making a completely different sound and sitting on the ground and really yelling its head off. And that is interesting. I think I would go for names, but so Lily Kindling, Play Work and Training, if you don't follow her on Facebook, etc., then follow her because she wrote an article for the Outdoor Learning Institute magazine, which I've forgotten the name of, Landscapes maybe, something like that, and put a thing on Facebook about it where she and a colleague of hers, talked about questions, didn't they, and types of questions that you can ask at Forest School and the kind of pros and cons of those kind of questions, and having that as an awareness in your mind as a practitioner at the same time as naming, that kind of like, more top down, I guess, kind of passing on of knowledge. Oh, that's a whatever. I think would give you both sides of the argument. So you're able to name it and pass that on, but you're also able to facilitate questioning around that and what's it doing.
And we've talked before, haven't we, about, we even did at one point, we asked people to do that curiosity audit, where you just went, when
Yes.
people present curiosity in your sessions, how do you respond? And it kind of comes into that, doesn't it? This idea of like, do you respond with hard facts? Here is the name, it is this, or do you get them to watch it for a bit longer and kind of... And then also you're moving into that area of, it's almost discovery learning. It's not quite, but maybe it's closest to discovery learning, that idea of like, well, I'm not going to help you. You watch all birds and you make your own catalogue of birds. And do you know what I mean? It goes that way if you go too far the other way of like, don't name it, don't tell them anything about it.
Well, yeah, and I think there's also a thing about modelling finding out more information. So a good example recently might be the wood wasps and then the ichneumon wasps that we've noticed in the woods here a lot the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so with ichneumon wasps...
And we did a big video, a really good video of ichneumon wasps on our Instagram and Facebook page.
So if we hadn't have known that that was an ichneumon wasp, then we wouldn't have been able to look up information. You know, actually it was a child that first told me that kind of wasp lays its eggs in other baby wasps. But being able to know the name then facilitates you to look up in a book or on the internet to find out more information about it, and then have stories to tell about it, about its behaviour. So we can observe its behaviour and go, oh, it's got its ovipositor and it's hovering around that tree for a long time, it's sitting there and doing that. But you won't know what it's doing unless you read about it, because you can't see inside that tree. And so modelling that process as the adult alongside some other learners demonstrates to them how they might be able to do that in another scenario.
And
in the future.
I think one of the things about identifying fauna is that it's, unlike flora and mushrooms, it is harder to go back and check. So in the moment, you want to stay focused on that wasp, and you want to go, oh my God, look at this thing, and it's floating around, do whatever. You don't want to break it and go, well, leave it, go and get a book.
Yeah.
Then when you've got the book and you've gone through and you've kind of found the right page and gone, or you've looked it up on whatever, and you go, oh, that is the thing. You can't go back and check it. So you have to make this toss-up between doing it, not doing it, going to get it. There's a bit in the Rewild Yourself book, just to go back to the books for a minute, where Simon is describing an experience, and he says one of the joys that he has in his life is sharing nature with someone who didn't know what was going on, which is probably why he wrote the books. You know, he wants to share it, and it probably does come from this altruistic sharing thing. So I think I'm right, I'm probably paraphrasing, he's in a cafe in Cornwall that's next to the beach. He is talking about peripheral vision. So he's saying, out of my peripheral vision, I saw dolphins in the water. And he's saying, I could have just turned my head, looked at the dolphins, and had I knew the dolphins were there. He probably would have got quite smug about it. He probably would have written like, nah, these other people with their coffee, or whatever. But he didn't. He turned around and he went, dolphins, and just pointed and said it loud enough that other people heard. Lots of people in the cafe then go, oh, clamber over, have a little look. And he says afterwards, there's a lady turns back to him who didn't know and just gives him a little look and gives him a smile of thanks, and and he says, oh, she wouldn't have seen it. And I facilitated that connection. And I listened to it and thought, what a lovely story. And I think that is a lot of what I think I'm doing day to day, of going, oh, just almost, finger pointing to the moon. Look at that thing over there. Hey, did you notice that? And then I thought, well, there's also that way where you can go too far, isn't there? And you can be a bit of a, the stereotype maybe of the like smug outdoorsman being
keeper of the knowledge,
and like whenever someone else presents something, you just top it with more knowledge. And sometimes that is what I catch myself doing when the children go like, a wasp, and my immediate reaction out of altruism to go, and I know things about this wasp, is like, they go, a wasp, and look, it's digging in the wood. And I, in my head, go like, did you know its babies look like this, and it flies like this, and then I'm like, oh, well, I've killed this, haven't I?
Yeah.
I've absolutely killed this.
Well, that's where the questioning thing that I talked about comes in, because you can kind of press pause and recognise that impulse in yourself. I'm exactly the same, and the same as a parent. So my own children will go, yes, quite often.
My boy started going, I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he does do that, doesn't he? He starts going, I know. And you're like, but you didn't. I do, though. I just know. So just stop talking. Yeah, over-explaining out of complete enthusiasm. I'm like, share this amazing excitement with me. And they're like, yeah, whatever, shut up. But if you can press pause on that yourself and just wait and say nothing for a bit, or ask a question about, I wonder what it's doing, or I wonder if it could be, or those kind of, read the thing about the questioning. It's got a nice little diagram to go with it, so you can get the hang of it. It's good.
Yeah. Would you recommend these books for someone doing their forest school training?
Yes.
Or someone who's already trained, or?
I think I would definitely recommend the How to Be a Bad Bird Watcher for someone doing their training or someone new to it, because I think it also, one way you could say it's a useful text is to think about your learners' progression. So even if you're like, oh yeah, I got birds down and I'm super nature connected and I don't need to sort of learn about this journey of doing it from the beginning, but your learners will. You know, if you're running a parent and toddler group, a lot of your parents will be at stage 1 of nature connection and may have seen some birds in their garden or the park or whatever, but won't be super into it. But you will watch their nature connection journey, as we've described quite often, and so the book is a good kind of reminder of what's going on there.
I would say it's a slight detour from things we normally would talk about, because I do think it's a good book for a leader to read in terms of giving you ideas about how to present things to learners. So, but where I think this is different is I think this is mainly, particularly the rewilding one, is more for adult learners or teenage, young adult
Didn't
learners.
you say that because I only listened to the very beginning of the Rewild Yourself one, where we talk about butterflies, but you bought some binoculars.
I did. It did inspire me to get binoculars.
Yeah, and so he does talk about these kind of keys to unlocking your access and connection to nature, doesn't he? So buying some binoculars, not really worrying about how expensive they are, but just buy some, waterproof trousers, getting a sheet of metal on the ground somewhere in your outdoor area for reptiles to...
Have a carrier bag to sit on
Things
so that your
like
butt
that.
doesn't get wet.
Yeah. Are nice little reminders about how just one prop. So often people will ask, won't they, on the social media pages, like, oh, what shall I invest in? What shall I buy? What kind of new kit should I get? So that might be quite an interesting read for somebody just starting out. Or
I think it's because here the way he's talking about rewilding is as a solo or individual pursuit. He talks about, you know, needing somewhere to sit so that you can sit on your own quietly and let be still so the nature comes to you. Or he talks about, talk about going on a walk with his dad, I think, and having waterproof trousers so they can ford rivers, and things like that. But I think the bits that I would go, well, that's not directly related to forest school, is that so much of what we do, so much of the reason that like bird watching is tricky, I think, at forest school is because the social element of what has happened at forest school is so high that you've either got to go almost like divide and conquer. Nobody can sit next to each other. And I have been involved in school groups where we've done that and gone, right, I'm going to put you here and I'm going to walk 5 meters. I'm going to put the next person here so you can't see each other.
we've done that for sit spots before, haven't we?
We have.
But
it's more
adults are present.
didactic.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that sort of thing is great. And that's where I think being able to frame it as like, I'm going to teach you this magic spell. And what we do is you sit down and you be still and you close your eyes and you count to 100. When you open them, nature will have got used
so
to
it's
you.
more like a game
It's
rather
more
than
like a
we're
game.
doing bird watching now, which means you need to be
But I think
quiet
that's
and
me
sit down.
listening to the book and going, how can I... He's not saying that for children. I'm having
but that's
to go...
how he's writing the book. That's
Yes,
how he's gaining your attention
Yeah.
as a reader. So you can do that in the same way.
But I do that
with
to
the group.
everything. I could read like the TV guide and I would be in my head going, right, so I bet if I applied that at forest school, look, they've got an exciting show and then a calmer show and then and look, it goes down at, you know, you just forest school is life.
I know, and that
Teaching
reminds
is
me
life, isn't
of
it?
It is what you said about the social side of things, and you know, that thing of like nature happens in a forest school session, and you're like, look at the nature that's happening, and most kids go, okay, but I was actually in the middle of an imaginary role play where I've just been building a bank for 3 hours and the bank has just opened. So
If you don't mind, I'm Sonic and I've actually got to run really fast over there, so...
exactly. So then you think, should I bother pointing out at all, or is that actually a really violent thing to do right now?
If you
It's
think about
really
the
interesting,
tendrils
isn't it?
thing, isn't it? That idea of tendrils
Yeah.
going out, and
Yeah.
that is one of the things, isn't it? But then I think then you're talking about these brain systems that go on that, you know, that background scan for your own name at the dinner party. It's that
Yeah,
thing, isn't it?
yeah.
And then going, right, well, if I can encourage them to tune in slightly more, then maybe they'll notice it. And
And do you know what? Yesterday, I was eating my lunch and having 3 conversations at the same time.
it was mental. Mental.
As happens, we've realised. What did you say?
Yep. No. What are you saying?
I swear,
Can you
it
stay there for a
didn't-
minute?
It didn't used to be like that. I think it's the lockdown effect. I'm really intrigued to see. So there's two factors going on. We've got 2 days, two consecutive days now, with the same group all day. So the effect of that is going to be really interesting to see long term, and also post lockdown. So what we're observing behaviour wise and attitudes wise is a result of that. Of like, I haven't interacted with very many people for 4 months. I need to say all the things I needed to say over the last 4 months to you
you've
all
had,
at once.
like, you've had your family with you, and there's been very little like competition for attention, if you like, and so there's this stuff of just like, no, I'm just going to talk to you, and you go,
Even though you are in the
could
middle of
see me talking to someone else, or like
Yeah.
you could, you know.
So I had my mouth full of sandwich, and I had 3 conversations coming from 3 different places around the fire circle, and then one child lifted up a log and went, Gemma, look, Gemma, look, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go because you are like literally screaming my name. Look at the beetles! I'm like, yeah, those are quite a lot of wood lice. But those are some things I've seen quite a few times. And that was the boot was on the other foot there. I was like, give a shit right now. Give a shit about the wood lice. If I'm totally honest,
But
I'm
you
being
played it
polite
though.
to you.
But you played it,
I'm being polite, but that must be what they feel like when we go, buzzard! They're like, yeah, actually, whatever. You've said that 20,000 times. We don't care about the buzzards. We are blah. But it obviously rubs off because then they do it back again. Do you know what I mean? It's just about the timing of it, isn't it?
There's I can't remember who it is. I want to say it is. Are you aware of the Vlog Brothers on YouTube?
Nope.
They have a definition of like being geeky or being a nerd as being unashamedly excited about a topic, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. But there's a thing about like in a lot of culture and society that you have to hide your enthusiasm or like play it down and be like, yeah, cool, whatever. And I think Forest School is great for like, it doesn't matter what your joy is. If your joy is like, I found a fucking pine cone! Wah! And then like someone will meet you there, right? Someone will come with you and go, yes, pine cones, let's do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I reckon if I hit this rocket, we'll make sparks! Yes! Like, let's get goggles and do it more! Like, it's that thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
it's like that game, Yes, Let's.
Yes, let's.
All the time.
But where I think...
But also the flip side of that, where they have the right to go, no, not interested right now.
But what I mean is I think that essentially meeting people with that level of enthusiasm is how we will increase diversity outdoors. Because because essentially it's people going, oh, I want to go running and put my headphones in, right? That's the example I'm going to use. And people going like, yes, okay, if you must. A full-on, eyeballs down the nose kind of thing. Yes, I suppose I shall actually be looking at some herons rather than being like, yeah, man, getting outside. I'm going to do my thing over here. You do your thing over there. Yeah. It's absolutely massive, the outdoors. Let's just like crack on.
Yeah.
And
that's like the thing of, what would you call it? Like long-term, just like a drip effect of nature. So you might start out running outdoors with headphones on, and it might take you a couple of weeks of doing that, like twice a week or whatever, before one day you notice something and it makes you slow down in your running because you're like, what is that thing? I always run this track and I've never seen that before. Or hang on a minute, what is that thing?
It's meeting you while you are, isn't it?
Or it might take you 2 years of doing that before you notice, or you take one headphone out, or whatever. But it's still valid and interesting, and I don't think you can fail to connect with nature in the same way as like sometimes I think you or I or any practitioner would say, oh, okay, I'm really thinking about that learner and thinking what they do every day, and they are, for example, spending 6 hours of their day completely in role as a character from Sonic the Hedgehog. Is this okay? Like, or if it is okay, is there a way I can kind of add to their experience, or is something as a practitioner I can do to kind of maybe make them more connected with nature or to engage with something else? And it is happening. You can't even if they are in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog, because they're outdoors and it's that constantly shifting environment.
And the more science I read, the more I realise that being outside in nature is not... The benefits of being outside in nature don't require your active participation.
Or
you
awareness.
breathe in phyto whatever they are from trees, right? Doesn't matter if you're running with headphones or being worthy and paddling in a canoe or, bird watching, doing whatever, you're still breathing in the
Yeah.
stuff the trees are pumping out. You're on uneven ground. Doesn't matter if you're being Sonic or you're walking along doing a bat walk, right? There's so many things that you go.
All the sensory stuff that's
all
happening.
the sensory stuff,
Yeah.
the different air quality, the light, green light is the
Yes,
one they
I was
use in
gonna say
light
that.
therapy,
Yeah.
and so
Going into your eyeballs.
unless you come to the woods with like
Hazmat
those like,
suit on.
blue glasses to go like, no, I don't want any green light.
Yeah.
You've got to work really hard to not engage with nature.
Yes.
And I think that's the takeaway
Yes.
that I'm going to poof, and on that bombshell.
On that bombshell.
That's my Clarkson impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
On
get
that
him
bombshell.
on. Let's get him on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, it's weird been doing it face to face.
I like it.
Oh, people who are Patreons, your stickers should be with you very soon.
Stickers.
You have been ordained as people that don't know. So our Patreon have had a complete. I haven't talked about it yet. We've got this whole rejig now. So I might get the prices wrong. $2 a month certifies you as a Master of Mud. $5 a month certifies you as a Knight of the Knives. $10 a month, Captain of Crows. And if you want to be like Forest School Podcast royalty, $15 a month is a Sovereign of Slime. And it's got all these amazing stickers that go with them. I would say you don't have to, if you want to do it as a one-off, sign up for 1 month, cancel it the next month. We will still send out the stickers and everything. We know that some of those are big
numbers.
to be doing every month. So if you want to just do it 1 month and go, here's a one-off, that's absolutely great. We really appreciate it. And it helps us keep doing this. That's everything.
It is.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're going to stay here and work for like another 4 hours. I was going to say bye, but it feels odd saying
I know.
goodbye. I'll say goodbye to the people listening.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.
If you like this podcast and want to support more episodes, you can donate through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Children of the Forest to show your support for the Forest School podcast.